The Philadelphia Eagles offense is obviously already one of the best in the entire NFL, given that they just put up great numbers last year and they're stacked with high-level talent at pretty much every position. But even so, there's good reason to believe that this Eagles offense could become even more dangerous in the 2025 season. And that's even with Kevin Patullo as the new offensive coordinator. So in this video, I'm going to break that down. Plus, I'll talk about the latest Eagles schedule leaks and an interesting development regarding Nakobe Dean's injury. So let's get started right now. The 2025 NFL schedule release is right around the corner, specifically with the league's full slate of games set to be revealed at 8 p.m. on Wednesday. And with that, of course, that means we'll get to see exactly what the defending Super Bowl champion Eagles schedule looks like. And I don't know about you, but I could not be any more fired up. I mean, we've already had a few games that have been revealed, those being the season opener at home against Dallas, which is going to be absolutely electric, especially with the banner being hung. And then you also got the Week 13 showdown with the Bears on Black Friday, which is sure to be another fun game. And also the Week 16 Saturday matchup with the Commanders in a game that will likely have huge playoff implications. And then on top of that, a few more games were announced, with the first of those being a Week 10 Monday Night Football matchup with the Green Bay Packers in a playoff rematch and a rematch of the Brazil game from last season. So this is sure to be yet another fun matchup between two good teams in prime time. And then this morning, it was also revealed that the Eagles would travel to MetLife to play the Giants in Week 6 on Thursday Night Football, which, I'll be honest, I'm not a huge fan of that just because it's not great to play in MetLife on a short week. So it should be an easy win, but hopefully they get out of that game healthy. And then moving on, the date of the Eagles and Chiefs Super Bowl rematch has also been revealed, with that coming early in Week 2 at 4:25 p.m. And then the Eagles will also close out their regular season at home versus the Commanders. So can't say I'm a fan of that one either, but I'll talk more in depth about this game and the other known games after the schedule comes out. And that reportedly includes a Week 3 matchup with the Rams, a Week 8 home matchup with the Giants, a showdown with the Lions in Week 11, and another late season one with the Bills in Week 17, and what will undoubtedly be a huge game. I mean, it's honestly crazy that this much of the schedule has already been reported, that being 11 of their 17 games, but I can't wait to see where the rest of the games fall and to just get the full picture of what the schedule looks like. But again, that's only the beginning when it comes to the schedule, and I just can't wait to see what the rest of the Eagles schedule looks like and where some of these other high-profile games fall. And when the schedule does come out, I'm going to be breaking down each and every game as well as giving my early record predictions. So make sure you guys subscribe and you turn on notifications. That way you don't miss that video or any other future videos after that. I mean, it's no secret that I have high hopes for the Eagles this season, as I'm sure we all do coming off a Super Bowl victory. And in some ways, I actually think they could be just as good or even better than they were last year, which I know that's kind of crazy to say just considering how darn good this team was last season. I mean, where do I begin? Like, there's just so many things that make that team great, whether it was the elite running game led by Saquon Barkley, who arguably had the greatest single season for a running back of all time. And then, of course, you also had the defense, which finished the year as the best in the entire league. And then we saw them have a historic run through the playoffs, in which we saw them put up the most points in a single playoff run ever. And by the time they got to the Super Bowl, they were firing on all cylinders, and they absolutely dominated the NFL's modern-day dynasty in Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, they were so good that they were up 34-0 and 40-6 before multiple garbage time scores by KC. And Patrick Mahomes was easily having one of the worst quarterback performances in a Super Bowl ever, simply because of how suffocating the Eagles' defense was. So my point is, that's an incredibly high standard to live up to. And I'm not saying they're going to be as good in every area, but I do think there is one pretty large area where the Eagles could possibly be even better in 2025. So let's get into that. In recent history, the Philadelphia Eagles have always consistently had good offenses. I mean, that's simply been a staple of the Jalen Hurts, Nick Sirianni era in Philadelphia. I mean, you can go back to that first year being in 2021 when nobody really had any expectations for this team or this offense to be very good at all, yet they still wound up with the 13th best offense in the league by the end of the year. Which, you know, that's not amazing, but it's definitely solid, not to mention that they were the #1 rushing attack in all of football that season. And then fast forward to 2022, and not only had the Eagles retained all their core players from the 2021 season and their offensive coordinator Shane Steichen, but they also, of course, added A.J. Brown. And things took off, as Jalen Hurts had an MVP caliber season, A.J. Brown had probably the best wide receiver season in the history of the franchise, DeVonta Smith had over 1,000 yards, Miles Sanders had over 1,000 yards on the ground to lead another elite Eagles rushing attack, and overall, the Birds finished as the third-ranked offense in all of football. And then moving on, 2023 was a clear step back for the Eagles offense, largely due to offensive coordinator Shane Steichen leaving and then Brian Johnson taking over, while Nick Sirianni also took on a bigger role in the offense. Yet, aside from the turnovers, Jalen Hurts still actually put up pretty good numbers through the air. A.J. Brown had another great year. DeVonta Smith put up over 1,000 yards once again. And DeAndre Swift, in his one season with the Birds, put up over 1,000 yards on the ground as well. And yes, things did completely fall apart at the end of the season, we all know that, but the Eagles still somehow finished the year with the 9th ranked offense in all of football. And then that brings us to 2024, where of course there was a whole lot of new for the Eagles offense. I mean, for starters, obviously they had just signed Saquon Barkley in the offseason, which was expected to bring a whole new dynamic to the Birds offense. And then they had also replaced offensive coordinator Brian Johnson with Kellen Moore, who was expected to bring in a lot of new offensive ideas. And, the Birds did struggle a bit out of the gates in that first quarter of the season for a variety of reasons, including probably mainly injuries, but their Week 5 bye week marked a clear turning point, and coming out of it, the Eagles showed a new commitment to the run game, and they took off from there, with Saquon Barkley going on to have an absolutely historic season at the running back position, becoming the 9th player ever to put up over 2,000 yards on the ground, and eventually going on to break the all-time record for rush yards in a single season, postseason included. And of course, the offensive line deserves a tremendous amount of credit for that as well, as does Jalen Hurts for constantly being able to check into the correct run plays and just managing things at the line of scrimmage. Now, as far as the passing game goes, the numbers weren't too crazy this season, just given the fact that, again, the Eagles were running the ball so often and so effectively, not to mention that they were consistently blowing out teams in the fourth quarter, meaning that there was really no reason to throw the ball. However, when it was needed, Jalen Hurts was able to step up and pass the ball effectively while also not turning it over. And there's no better example of that than in the Super Bowl when Hurts balled out and won Super Bowl MVP. And overall, the Eagles offense ended as the 8th ranked offense in the league, while they also put up the most points in a single playoff run in NFL history. So obviously, it was a pretty darn good year for them offensively. But even so, I think there's reason to believe that they could be even better in 2025. And I think Reuben Frank of NBC Sports Philadelphia laid out the whole thing perfectly in a recent article, as he pointed out that the Eagles offense, while good in 2024, had potential to be even better, as they were 7th in scoring, 8th in yards, 10th on third down, 11th in yards per play, and 13th in the red zone. Again, very good, but with all the talent that they had, there was definitely a lot of room for improvement. But now, in 2025, the Eagles are going to have an insane amount of continuity from the past couple of years, which could help them unlock the offense even more, as he wrote, quote, "Now, with Dallas Goedert back for 2025, the Eagles return 10 of 11 offensive starters, with right guard the only exception. And 8 of those starters were also here in 2023. That sort of continuity is extremely rare in the NFL these days, and it's extremely valuable. When you've spent that much time playing and practicing and watching film with the guy lining up next to you, you know how he thinks, you know what he sees, you share his football DNA. Multiply that by 10 guys, and you have a unit that has the ability to operate at a truly advanced level. And we saw that at times last year, especially in the postseason. But with the Super Bowl MVP quarterback, an MVP caliber running back, 2 elite wide receivers, an outstanding tight end, and the best offensive line in football, and the whole group continuing to grow as a group, I don't see any reason this offense can't take a big leap in 2025. And I personally couldn't agree more with what he wrote there. I mean, again, even with how good the Eagles offense was last year, especially towards the end of the postseason, they still clearly had room to grow, and that continuity that they have going into next year could help them to unlock their full potential. I mean, think about it. Like, the longer guys play together, the more comfortable they become with each other and the more cohesive they become as an overall unit. So, given another year all playing together, it makes sense that they could become even more dangerous and take it to the next level. Now, that said, the one big question mark is obviously new offensive coordinator Kevin Patullo, as he's now, of course, going to be taking over at that spot, with Kellen Moore having gone to New Orleans to be their head coach. And I honestly think that Patullo could be the biggest X factor for the Eagles' entire season, considering that if his scheme and play calling is good, then I think the Eagles can reach a new level offensively. But if he's bad, it could wind up being the thing that holds the Eagles back from repeating. I mean, we saw what happened in 2023 with Brian Johnson and Nick Sirianni controlling the offense. Like, that offense was super talented, but they were held back by the scheme and the play calling. So, safe to say, a lot is riding on Kevin Patullo's performance this season as the offensive coordinator. And while I do understand the concerns with him having never been an OC or play caller before, there's also a lot to like about him. As for starters, like Reuben Franks points out in that article, everyone in the Eagles building, whether it's the coaches, the players, or the front office, all speak very highly of Patullo, so he seems to have the confidence of everyone around him. Plus, on top of that, Patullo has been heavily involved in the Eagles offense the past 4 years, being the passing game coordinator and the associate head coach the past 2 seasons. So when you talk about the Eagles offense having continuity going into next year, it certainly helps a lot to have a guy that has been here for the last 4 years and has also been heavily involved in the offense now calling the plays. Not to mention that a report also came out shortly after Patullo was hired saying that the offensive scheme and terminology is expected to stay the same under Patullo as it was under Moore this past year, so there's even more continuity for you. And like I said earlier, the Eagles offense has also consistently been towards the top of the league in that time span, so you'd have to think that maybe Patullo has had something to do with that. And also, for all those concerned that KP is just going to listen to everything that Nick Sirianni says when it comes to coming up with offensive game plans and play calling, that's also not true. As Patullo himself told Zach Berman that he and Nick don't often see things the same way, and one of Patullo's jobs over the past 4 years has actually been to call out Sirianni when it's warranted. Plus, Patullo has also collaborated heavily with every Eagles offensive coordinator that has been here over the past 4 years, including Shane Steichen and Kellen Moore, and he's likely learned a lot from them and adopted some of their ideas, as Patullo in the past has said that it's very important to always be learning and adapting. So personally, I feel pretty good about Kevin Patullo being the offensive coordinator, and it's just one more thing that helps with the continuity of this offense. And again, because of all that continuity, I do think the Eagles offense could potentially be even more dangerous in 2025. But what do you guys think? Give me your thoughts down in the comments below. Moving on though, I do also want to touch on some recent buzz regarding linebacker Nakobe Dean, as obviously he's been rehabbing all offseason after tearing his patellar tendon in the wildcard round last year. So the big questions are, when will he be back and at what point will he be fully healthy and back to himself? Well, a recent article just came out from Ed Kratz of SI titled, quote, "Potentially worrisome news for Eagles linebacker Nakobe Dean out of San Francisco," which at first that sounds pretty scary, but when you read the article, it pretty much just explains how 49ers promising edge rusher Drake Jackson was actually just cut by the team after he failed a physical, stemming from his own torn patellar tendon injury that he suffered all the way back in Week 18 of the 2023 season. And while obviously that's not good news, and it is a little worrying that Dean is dealing with that same injury, just because Jackson hasn't recovered well doesn't mean the same thing is going to be true for Nakobe Dean. And based on some recent comments that he made this offseason, it sounds like he's pretty optimistic with how his rehab is going.
Rehab going good. I'm getting better daily. Just continue to work and get better day in and day out.
And do you have a timetable for when you think you'll be ready to go 100% on the field?
I mean, yeah, I plan to be back. I plan to be back in no time, so we just continue to work and get better daily. God got me, and I'm continuing to work. I feel good, and I'm continue to work to feel better.
It's definitely good to hear Nakobe Dean is optimistic, but we still obviously really have no idea when he's going to be back and exactly how healthy he'll be when he does return, and we got a long way to go before we figure that out. In the meantime, though, you guys know that I'm going to be continuing to cover everything that happens for the Eagles this entire offseason, so if you don't want to miss any of that, including the news on the schedule release and my predictions, then make sure you subscribe and you turn on notifications. Again, you're not going to want to miss it. And also, make sure you leave a like down below because it really does help me out a ton. See if we can get to at least 500 likes on this video. And also, leave a comment down below. Do you think this Eagles offense has more room to improve? Again, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on that. And also, if you want to watch another Eagles video, then you can check this one out right here. And with all that being said, that's pretty much all I got for this one, guys. So thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.